So Ian's been around since the very first meetups that we ran. And as Ian says, there's some new faces here and some old faces as well, this being one of them. So it's been 3.25 years since we have had an in-person meetup. This entire business that we created, AWA Global, was always based around community. It was based around people and connection and really getting together to try and figure out how on earth we do this ridiculously difficult job of changing organisations. It's hard, it's lonely, and coming together meant that we could find a safe space for us to try things out, to learn from each other, and to create something which was a better world of work. And that's what we've been doing all this time. And so out of that, for all of the different connections that we've had, through the learnings we've had through giving our trainings and through our client work that we have been working at through the pandemic as well, even if it's been slightly different, all of that information has come together to build upon that people-first approach to change. How do we create the organisations that we've all wished for? And we've been through that cycle of creating sort of process first change, that kind of thing. And we got into this, collecting this data, collecting all these things together to figure out how could we do this differently. And that really, the summation of that work was this enterprise change pattern. You may remember it, some of you, as the AWA playbook. It's evolved from that and become the enterprise change pattern, which is a real, for the coaches amongst you, it's like a coaching conversation with the whole organisation. And so we've now very excited to come back together again to for this first time together to hear about and to see an actual case study of this, of how this has actually worked in an organisation. So, yes, other things I need to mention. So during this time, we have also created a new company called Brighter Work. So you may have seen some of the news around Brighter Work. We created this specifically to be able to help more inside people's organisations, to go in and do the work we've already been doing, but now focusing specifically on that consulting, coaching work. So I had this brain idea to do this, and I knew that I really needed, we had also a fantastic team, AWA Global. As you can see, we've got all this together with the team. It's incredible the work that they do. But I knew that we needed at least one other director as well. And this is where I asked Gemma, who's over here. So round of applause for Gemma. So I've known Gemma for as long as AWA has been around, if not a bit longer. So it's been at least 10 years. And Gemma is a founder and director of Brighter Work. And tonight she is going to be using her incredible skills to graphically record what goes on here, and at the end we should have this incredible graphic artwork that is going to show what we've been doing. So thank you for doing that as well. Longest introduction in the world. So the next thing I would like to do is introduce Carl. So welcome. Carl is going to be running tonight and sharing with us what he's been up to. But I thought probably it'd be better to hand over to you to introduce yourself. And I just wanted to say thank you for being here and to sharing this with everybody. So also a round of applause.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks, Simon. Thank you. Yeah, running or running away, one of the two, right? I've actually got like a 3-month probation or ban from using microphones at office, so it's quite nice to be somewhere I can use one. So bear with me if I get this completely wrong. Okay, so you said like safe space to experiment and learn. Hold on to those words, right? Because we're going to try out something a little bit different for the first time, a cooperative mega game looking at cross-team collaboration. So that's what we're all doing. So good luck. If, by the way, we get a chance to move around a little bit. If you want to be super creative and cutting out stuff and talking to people and enjoying and embracing chaos, come close to the front. If you're like, nope, no, thank you very much, then you can head out to the back a little bit. It's a little bit calmer, but that's a relative term, okay? Relative term. So I've been at Discover for about 5.5 years. And my role is the senior manager of our Agile Enablement team within Discover's Technology Academy, which is quite an exciting thing. So we have a technology organization and really looking at helping develop and upskill our entire organization towards greater product centricity, greater ways of working, greater technical excellence. And I'm joined by a couple of my colleagues as well. Well, 3 of my colleagues, so thank you very much. And what we do is we look at helping teams or teams of teams, which we call product families in our organization, find their right fit agility by looking at like a broad array of different patterns in our like agile ecosphere, rather than just one prescribed framework or the next leading framework. So we will beg, steal, and borrow from anyone and everyone without mercy and regret to our success or failure. But we also do it in a way, like this is where we bring back to the enterprise change pattern. We're also increasingly trying to do that in a way that is inclusive of the people who are affected by that change. And I'll talk a little bit more about that after we've played through our game. You're going to hear the word pattern quite a lot probably from me, right? We have the enterprise change pattern, but also some of the materials that you'll find in front of you are there's these cards, these different change cards or pattern cards. And when I'm describing a pattern, and I've completely forgotten to do this. Oh yeah, here it is. That's awesome. Thank you, Gemma. Thank you so much for drawing that up on the fly. When I describe a pattern, I'm using like the hillside definition. If you know like the Scrum plot community and like the Scrum book, this is like the basis for it. But quite an important concept, that it presents users who have a particular problem and a potential solution to their problem, but very, very important, right? That those users don't operate in a void. They have a context, their business reality, their current reality. And within that reality, there are different forces at play as well. And those forces might be different for one team to the next team, one organization to the next team. So by understanding and exploring the context that people are working within ensures that we are closer to helping find a way of working that is actually suitable for them to solve the real business problems that they have, rather than just, you must do this. Thank you very much. So after we played the game, I think I'll do a little bit more framing around Discover, and I think take a kind of a personal perspective as well, or like my like individual perspective and journey for the organization in looking at change. And although it's kind of like my story, my narrative, I'm also reflecting many of my colleagues. As we have a large organization, we have like the luxury of also many change agents and many good agile practitioners in our space. So I'll share some of those stories collectively as well, but primarily through just my lens of one human being. And I think just some initial framing. So I can roughly divide my time in Discover into 2 halves. Like the first half was within the Scaled Agile framework as a context. So as a Scrum Master, as a release train engineer, as a solution train engineer, and just so you know, like this isn't going to like degrade into a anti-safe diatribe, right? Like I have opinions, you have opinions, LinkedIn has all of the opinions, right? I'm going to kind of like go off of that one a little bit, right? And I will actually talk about how we can apply patterns from different frameworks, even within the Scaled Agile framework. Some examples of how we managed to make that work, just to like, if that's your reality, like this doesn't limit you, right? But the second half of like my time was at a point where like the organizational zeitgeist was like, hey, this framework is no longer helping us solve our business problems. It's not really taking us forward. What does the future look like? We were joined by a new CIO, Amir Rooney, at that time, who had a long tenure at ING, which is quite interesting, right? Because it connects Discover in this case study also to that pretty famous case study of ING adopting the Spotify model. More broadly, it also connects us to like some of the ING and large-scale Scrum and like their adaptation from the Spotify model to less. There was a 2019 conference where they presented that. And then also from Spotify itself, and there's quite an interesting case study about their application of Scrum at scale. So it's quite interesting just looking at like the different frameworks in their application, how they changed and their usage and adoption across organizations. And it's just like some of the tenure that brings us here today. And with like that organizational like realization, hey, look, scaling for scaling's sake isn't working for us. The will of like our organization was to descale as much as possible and to like achieve greater product centricity, but also looking for small autonomous teams who had end-to-end ownership of a product. Now, if I cut a long story short so we can get on with this game, right? That was the future vision statement, and we have done a lot of investment towards that space, a lot of work on automation, upskilling our workforce, our engineering workforce, and the technology to support it, greater product focus. But the current reality is that there are still many, many times when cross-team collaboration and even large area coordination is required. And generally three scenarios. When there's tightly coupled architectures that requires collaboration across many different teams, particularly if those teams own components. When there's coordination through system bottlenecks, like a release team, or having to integrate into a series of shared environments, or when you generally need multiple teams to consume a backlog at the pace that the market demands. And all of these are still true for us. And we're now going to go and explore some of this by proxy in our game. Sound good? Yeah, awesome. Okay, I can put this down now. That was in case someone started to cause trouble. I could just give them a good whack. Okay, so we've tried this a couple of times. We've scaled up to 6, and now it looks like we're scaling up a fair bit more, right? So our mission over the course of about the next hour and 15 minutes or so is to build a zoo. We are going to be launching a new AWA Discover Brighter Zoo. First hour is going to be figuring out the name, and then we'll get to the game. Each table represents a team with a different mission. So we have over here the animal acquisitions team. They're responsible for sourcing and finding the right animals for our zoo. We have the habitat team over here, who are responsible for making sure that each enclosure looks as amazing as possible. I want running waterfalls, like mountains, forests. If you don't like that, you can move, it's fine. We have our enclosure team, the physical space that an animal is actually going to live. So you've got to think about this, if you have an elephant, try and have an appropriate size space. There's the only hint I'm going to give the entire evening. Over here, thank you very much, we have our education team. Wow, okay, a lot of people are interested in education. We might, by the way, want to just break you guys up and come and join some of these other spaces. But the purpose of the education team is to, as our guests come in, help them understand these great animals that we've got. What actually is a tapir? I don't know. I'm not even sure if I'm pronouncing it right. That's your job to fix. And we have the perimeter team, almost said penguin team, perimeter team. So making sure that animals are appropriately enclosed. Now, if they're not, they might go wandering. Avinash, you know that from experience in our playtest. It didn't go so well. And over here we have the HR team. I thought we weren't going to use the HR team or let them in the room. I don't know. Just kidding. So the HR team, is there to make sure that we all do our jobs correctly. I'm just kidding. I don't know if there are any HR professionals in the room. I said I wasn't going to make a joke, but I did it anyway. I feel bad about that one. It's absolutely fine. I like you anyway. You're welcome to stay. Well, there are other tables as well. The goal of the HR team is to make sure that we, as colleagues, are also appropriately upskilled and able to support the animals that we have. Simon, you've got a very important role. You are our animal welfare officer. So if we are mistreating our paper animals, Simon will tell us. Okay?
Regulatory.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, or you back pay is fine. It is a game, so games have points. Points don't have prizes, by the way. But there's pizza and beer at the back by the looks of things, so just settle for that. We're going to play over 3 different rounds. Each time box. Now, normally our time boxes would be a fixed length, but for our game, we're going to do slightly longer on the first time box as we kind of figure this stuff out, and then the time boxes will get a little bit shorter. After each of our different iterations of time boxes, we're going to do a shared sprint review or iteration review, right? And this is one of the only cross-team collaboration pattern that I'm introducing. The rest are up to you. We're going to look at how our zoo is shaped up from all of our contributions. The zoo is going to be built out over here. And if someone like to volunteer to be our architect, by the way. Yeah, thank you for volunteering at the same time. Well, I can't handle all of the that's good. Thanks, man. Yeah, I appreciate it. Awesome. Okay. Excellent. Yeah. No, only for now. Don't worry. People will be coming to you. And yeah, and then we're going to just we'll do a retrospective, and we'll have opportunities for improvement from one round to the next. Does it all make kind of sense so far? We're building a paper zoo. It's going to be there. We're going to have animals in enclosures. Those animals are going to earn us points. How do they earn points? Based on what our customers are interested in, right? So here we've got some random cards. This could change, by the way, like we'll find out. But just for right now, we did some customer research, very in-depth, and they really want animals from South America. Okay, so animal acquisitions teams, are you listening? Right, South America, but also from Europe, right? They know exactly what they want, these customers. And they want as much species diversity as possible. So reptiles and bears and big cats, you know, lizards. Well, lizards are reptiles, so you probably wouldn't score well for that. The more you can live into what our customers need, the more points you will earn. The more animals you can add to the zoo, the more points you'll earn. The rarer the animal is, the more points you'll earn. And for our education team, the more you can help our users understand the zoo, the more points we'll earn. And then, well, the good news is you're probably going to get the highest score. The question will be like how long that record will hold for. So on each of the tables, you will find one laminated rule set. Now, Claire, fortunately, you know this game, so you're going to help your team out. You will also find, we'll come to this, there's an excellent canvas, an experiment canvas when it comes to our retrospective. Okay, so take a couple of minutes, read the rules you have and make sure you understand them. I'll come around and give pointers, and then we'll go into our first time box. Okay? Cool. And yeah, so all the tables are fine. Hey, HR team, you might want to, if you feel comfortable, you might want to just spread out a little bit. It might be too many for 5 people, but that's up to you.
Do I have to build my own, or can I try and...
Yeah, go find a friend. Right? Every architect needs an apprentice, right? Every Sith Lord, yeah.
I have a question.
Who has a? There's people coming as well.
Okay.
Is that all good?
Oh yeah, it's all good. Yeah,
Yep.
perfect. Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah, spot on.
Does it make roughly sense, right? Like you can have an A5 enclosure for an animal, or A4, A3. You're going to stick them together with glue. Like us. Okay, everybody. In about 10 minutes, we'll do a review and see how well our zoo is doing. Okay. So 10 minutes of playing. Okay.
Who's building the... Oh, they're building an enclosure.
Yeah.
People into the middle to have a conversation together because I think we're all being siloed, which we all accuse companies of doing. So is anyone?
We're putting an anteater in the zoo. This is the goal, right? Cage needs to be for an anteater.
So when we say holding, are these animals being treated properly?
Don't care.
What? It's
We haven't
outrageous.
brought them over yet.
Yet.
Well,
We've got them on our list and we haven't brought them over yet.
I'm going to start a list of my own. Is this right?
They're still being listed.
Yeah. 3 minutes.
Location.
First in enclosure, then in the fence.
A lot of people, but not many voices speaking.
Yeah, you're going to have to use like informed information, research. With
How many fences have you got over there?
Oh, David the Marquis.
Okay, everybody, that is our first iteration. Yeah. Cool. We can see how many people have been subjected to safe if I do this. Okay, everybody, can we all come together? Okay. We're going to do a short sprint review. I think it will be a short sprint review. Product review. I'm sorry, I'm being mean. Okay.
They got walls. We
So-
didn't do it when we tried that. We didn't even have
Yeah.
walls.
So what have we got? We have ourselves.
A3 size enclosure.
Yeah. Yeah. We have a
Penguin and a pond.
We have a penguin, brilliant, in an enclosure with some water, I think,
A3
surrounded by some glass. Okay. A fence. Yeah. Okay.
It's green. It's green.
Yeah. Animal welfare officer.
It's a bit low on one side. The glass.
It's a bit low at one side. Humboldt penguins eat between 10 and 14% of their body weight every day. So I'm just wondering where the fish are.
In the pond.
Oh, they're in the pond.
Penguin a fish, you only have to eat for one day. Bring it
They're
up.
on the water, you can't
Cool.
see them.
Was there talk of an anteater at one point? Yeah. Is
He's still being shipped.
Yeah.
okay. He's like
All the others were in the
They're
shipping.
in shipping.
okay.
Penguin was priority.
We just
Yeah.
stored them in a warehouse.
Okay. Did you hear that?
They're still being
yeah.
shipped.
Yeah. So work in progress. Okay. Awesome. So also, education team, did you create anything for us?
We call the Humboldt Penguin Harriet. That's that bird.
Harriet. Okay, that's quite cute. So I'm going to give that half a point. Human resources. Education team. What have you got there?
Bullet points for things we're going to tell people about customers about.
Excellent. About an anteater. Harriet the anteater. Unfortunately, you have a sign with no anteater, so I'm not going to award any points this round. Who knows what the future might hold for you?
There is some value there. People can see a sign and they get to see that the anteater is turning up.
Is that like minimum viable anteater? Yeah.
It is it's
Yeah.
the taste
You
test.
get to learn something, so definitely
Yeah.
some education piece from it.
Yeah.
Just not getting to experience the
Okay.
whole anteater.
Well, you're all looking quite intimidating, so I think that's worth half a point. And our HR team, do you have anything that you would like to help us with?
A bit. That's all I got.
A bunzo? A vet? A vet for the zoo. Okay, brilliant. Thank you.
We need a security for.
And some security for the penguin. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
They do get stolen.
Okay, I think that's worth a point. Okay.
You can
Yeah.
pick up a penguin.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm going to deduct 10 points for that pun. So that's sorry, I'm shouting. I don't think I need this, do I? Sorry.
No, you don't.
Right, turn that off. This is why I'm not allowed to use these things at work. I've got 1 3/4 points so far. But how rare is the penguin?
Very rare.
We're endangered, I think.
They were decimated by mining. This one, no, not a number. So there's only 3.
Which one's that?
He's
Vulnerable is worth 5 points. And where do you find your penguin? Is it in South America or Europe?
South America.
Okay, South America. And it's not really species diversity because it's just one animal. So I will give you 10 more points. So that's 11 3/4 points for round 1. Very good. Would you mind writing 11 3/4 for round 1? I'll just do the total score. We won't worry about that at the minute. Oh, thanks, Gemma. Okay, so if you... Oh. There was no maximum, right? I guess like 10,000, right, is what I was expecting. Yeah.
They want stuff from Europe. There's no Europe animals on the list.
Oh, you can thank AI. So can I ask everyone to go back to their tables for this next part of the conversation? We're having a sorry, yeah.
I was going to ask whether we concentrate on that animal.
We'll have an opportunity for that conversation. Don't worry. Yeah. I will go back to... Okay, everybody, if you could retake your seats, we are going to do I think I've got like 10 minutes. We'll see how we do. A 10-minute retrospective on that first iteration. This is your opportunity to look at improvements. So could you beat 11.5 points in the next round? Okay. Maybe you can get 12 points. Think big, dream big. Those retrospectives are going to happen at your table. And you have 10 minutes. So you have the experiment canvas on your table. And maybe, Simon, you could demo one for us. They should be blue tacked on for safety. Oh, well done. Thank you. Voila, one of these. And this is something that, so Gemma and I, we've taken some of the elements of the enterprise change pattern here to consider what improvements we could make. So the structure I'd like to do for this retrospective is that everyone individually take 1 minute and think about what is the biggest opportunity for improvement that you see. That's an individual reflection. There are some sticky notes on the tables if you want to write that down. So take a moment, or take a minute for that question. What is the single biggest improvement you could make? And then we'll discuss. So it's silent for this bit. Good question. Okay, so I think a lot of people are talking, which is fine. So at your table, thinking about the options that you might have, discuss one of them. Which of the ideas you have on your table do you want to look at more? And then here's where your experiment canvas can come in. Describe your problem on the canvas. I think like one canvas per table is probably good enough. Thanks, And think about, well, what is your hypothesized solution? Like, so what could you do for improvement? What might that look like? What would success look like? What might failure of that experiment look like? And there's a very important box there, which is like, who do you need to include in your experiment? And since we are looking at this from the lens of cross-team collaboration, there are these pattern cards. You'll notice that some of them are like pre-selected as we started the game. Like we had a sprint, we had a cross-team review, and we had a team retrospective. Are there different patterns that you would wish to apply? And that's a conversation that we've got about 4 minutes or so for. Thank you.
So it feels like we've got
Depends whether we still use the same.
Okay, everybody, could I have everyone's attention, please, as we come to the end of that part of the game? That's our first retrospective.
Yeah.
Now, there was a request or a proposal. Sorry, can you remind me of names? Matt. Matt, over in the enclosure team, would like to propose that we start doing a cross-team retrospective for the end of the next iteration. How does that? Anyone else think about that? You don't have to come. Yeah. What do you think? So at the end of the next iteration, instead of doing individual team retrospectives, we'll do a cross-team retrospective. Okay? I think we've got consent. Okay? So we'll do that. Okay, so you've had your retrospectives at your team level. We don't have time now for a cross-team retrospective. So we're going to go into time box 2. Now, you guys did really well with Harriet the penguin, so I'm going to give you 8 minutes for iteration 2, starting now. Thank you. Oh, don't worry about it. Yeah. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Okay. Sea turtles down, please. Okay, everyone. Would everyone like to come and have a look at our zoo? I don't need this. We're going to come round. Yeah.
That was like if you can give him that again.
Yeah. That's your job, is to stop me doing that.
Sorry, Rob.
Yeah.
So I had to go and speak to him.
Okay. So let's have a look.
Fear and please.
So we had a penguin last time. It looks like we've got some new guys.
Platypus.
So we have an anteater, and we have
Gerald, the giant,
Gerald. Okay,
the giant anti-crab.
brilliant, fantastic. And a sea turtle. Sean the turtle. Okay. Was that like a vote or like a phone-in competition? I don't know. Like, I'm going to use this.
No, because it's too good to.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So where are these animals from? Where's an anteater? That's not Europe. That's South America, right?
Yeah.
And the sea turtle could be.
That doesn't have a location against it, so we're arguing South America.
Yeah, Croydon. I'm going to not account that in. So I'm going to give you 8 points. I know I'm a very harsh person, right? 8 points for the species, for South America for sure. And I'll give you 8 points again for species diversity. Fantastic. What about the rarity, or sorry, the endangered status of these animals?
Oh, let me just double check.
So one of
Turtle is,
Oh yes, we need to see if we can take away points.
sea
Sorry,
turtle
Simon.
is vulnerable, so it's 5 points. And giant anteater is also vulnerable.
Okay, sorry, but are we happy with these animals?
Well, I was just going to add one thing. Mexico is one of the prominent places for sea turtles.
Oh, okay.
And Mexico is almost South America, isn't it?
Yeah.
It actually is.
Yeah, that's okay. Thank you.
It's unfortunately my range is 2 to 3, so it's still 8 points. It says it right there. Okay, and our education team. Do you have anything that you'd like to add in terms of content?
Ants are an issue because you have to get the right ants and the ants escape, so we've got to get the enclosure right.
Yep. Excellent.
There's
Do we have
ants.
any ants in this enclosure?
Yeah. This is
Excellent.
There's a mound. Fantastic.
Cool. Awesome. How many points did I say I was going to give you per
Infinite.
infinite points? I think that's what it was. Well, I'll check that. I think it's 3 points, I said.
In case there aren't any ants in there, we do have some pizza ready.
Yeah, I thought that for the sea turtle. Okay, what's
The
that?
anteater, don't be ridiculous. Sea turtles don't eat pizza.
We had a premium experiences team, do we? Or a marketing team? I can't remember which one it was. or
They've all resigned.
yeah, they resigned.
team.
Habitat team, that's cool. It's just contributing to that space. So, are we happy that where's our seater? Like, got some water,
Yeah, that's.
got some sand.
That's the sweet.
I don't know what the brown stuff is.
I know that is
Seaweed.
salt water.
Oh, salt water. Okay,
Yeah.
that's fine.
So, from a regulatory perspective, I was actually very happy with the size of enclosure with the anteaters because they do need up to 1 square mile of actual territory, and so I can see the larger enclosure here, which you get some good marks for. I like the way they've got some water there. I assume that's water, not a cloud, or a cave or a rock. Yeah, so that's good. They need some water, and I love the ant mound. I just think that's like just brilliant. They need some food, and they've got some food there. That's fantastic.
So cool.
Also, very happy, just as a quick mention, us at Regulatory Affairs very much like to be included in the process. And Geeta here did ask me about the regulatory side of the sea turtle early on in the process. And so I was very happy to
interesting.
be engaged in this to help with anything that came up. So good job.
Fantastic. And from our human resources colleagues, anything that you would like to add in terms of like supporting our zoo and our colleagues?
Yeah, I think we have identified a lot of. I think you might want to promote.
Oh wow! Okay, a poster. Fantastic.
Yeah.
We have identified
So we've
the-
identified some of the roles. We went around and see what people needed and added. Can we read them?
Sure. What do we have? Vet, ticket office, security, catering, feeders, animal carers, food buyers, so supply, cleaners, guide, to also map. Someone mentioned map, right? So we need to do that. Maintenance, also shipping, trainer, subject matter expert, animal supply, and courier.
Awesome. You forgot turtle waxer, but I'll let you. Okay. Yeah.
And
That was made out of.
Kira.
And just so that we've got something there, there seems to be a hole in the fence over there. Yeah, like in the corner. there.
Yeah.
I thought we have to have something there for regulatory to improve upon.
Yeah.
You see how big this anteater is?
That's a penetration test right there. Okay. 34 points I'm going to give to that round. Very good. Okay, awesome. Now we're going to do another 10-minute retrospective looking at any improvements we can make for the third and final iteration. Now, we had a proposal for a shared cross-team retrospective. So I'm going to allow you guys to figure out how you're going to run it, but I'm just going to put a 10-minute timer for that. But again, think about what patterns, cross-team patterns or collaboration patterns you could apply to help the efficiency or the effectiveness of us towards our shared goal. Thank you.
Let's start with what went well. Because we scored
Are you guys just a question, are you moving into like a planning mode now, or are you still in a retrospection mode?
What we can do better.
Yep. Okay, that's fine. Yeah, because you still got 7 minutes, so you can really use that time. Yeah, right. Let's get to 100 points. Round 3, come on.
Yeah.
possible.
Yeah. Just maybe like one prompt, like you can continue the line you are. How you use this time, like if this is a correlate for like real life and like large organization, cross-team collaboration, is our retrospective better focused around like how we're interacting as teams to score points for our game, or how we're gonna like, I love the role play, by the way, that's awesome. You continue as you are, but there's just a one idea.
What will give us more points?
More animals.
So yeah, so we'll be.
But actually, will that give us more points, or working more effectively will give us more points as well?
Yes.
So how can we work more effectively?
Okay, everybody, I'm going to set our final time box now is 8 minutes long, and it starts now.
Hello, 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 hello. Excuse me, everybody. It's come to my notice. Excuse me, hello. This is the old hand trick. Remember this? Unfortunately, it's come to my attention as regulator that there are animals around the place which have no enclosures and they don't know where they are, and that was quite against what was said in the retrospective. So it doesn't feel like we're following the process that was submitted to the regulatory board. So we need to do something about that quickly. What's going on with these animals that are floating around?
Good. Can we have a look?
Thank you.
Let's go have some beers, regulator.
Okay.
For a beer. Let's go for a beer.
Yeah.
Hopefully, yeah.
Yeah. There's a bit of a problem here. According to the European Association of Zoos and Aquarium, that anteaters get very scared by very loud noises, and according to the tapir, actually makes very loud squeaking noises, and it's stressing out the anteaters.
Not anymore.
So we've got an extra close. It needs to be. Yeah, there might need to be something in there.
That's our time box. Away from the trees and the high fences.
Put the fences down.
Yes. Yeah.
Put the fences down.
Hey everybody. Okay, so I won't shout. That's our final time box. Can everyone come round and we'll have a look at how did our final zoo shape out? I'll put that down. Okay, yeah, I invite you, come and join us if you want to see. Oh my God, this is going to be like hard to calculate. Okay, there seems to be a step up in outcome. Brilliant. Okay, so what have we got? We have ourselves a Malayan tapir. Brilliant. Oh, are you happy, Simon,
Malayan.
with everything? Malayan, tomato. Yeah.
Let's have a quick look. Don't need that.
Yeah. Giant anteater. Is that 2 turtles now?
Yes.
Yes.
Is that a man-eating or turtle-eating turtle?
No.
No.
It's good that we've got them
Sea
to
turtles.
Yeah. No, I look.
Team has confirmed they are.
I'm quite happy with the sea turtles being together. They're actually
Yeah.
a similar species, so that's all good.
Cool.
I like the addition of the soundproofing here between
It's
the
got
stress
earmuffs
down.
as well.
Oh, fantastic. What do you want? There was something that we talked about with HR, which was to do with the carers.
Yes.
Did anything actually happen with that?
Yes, we got a job description, went around asking people what they need from animal carers.
Okay.
And yes, a job description for it.
So we've got a job description. Did we hire anyone?
We didn't yet, no.
Okay, so we have a job description. I'm sure that will
Hiring you.
make the animals very happy that we have a job description.
We're not firing it, we're sacking it first.
But thank you for at least putting the job description together. It's a good first start.
So I'm going to give you, I'll give you 5 points for that. Thank you very much.
That's very good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that enough, or do we need something else?
No, I think we're good. I'll give you 6 points.
And culture, yeah.
I'm curious about a disco.
6, and that's it. You ask me again, it goes down to 2. No, just kidding. Yeah. Okay, awesome.
I'll get the points for the animal.
Yeah, thank you. So we do animal points. So we've got lots of different species diversity, right? So I think, are there 5 different animal species? We've got turtles, we've got mammals, we've got birds, we've got an ape, and I think that's 5. I'll give you 20 points for that. Fantastic. Katie's going to add up our animals. Any education team things you want to share?
Yep. Gorillas use tools, highly intelligent.
Ooh.
Sorry, what was the last one?
No.
Does it have a name?
They leave their family when they're done.
Okay, awesome. So that's good. That's definitely points. And then you've got a few more posters that you want to share. Don't have to describe them. Thank you for showing us one. Any more?
Yes. The wolf.
Oh, the wolf's got one. Thank you, Diego. Diego the wolf.
And a toy for the wolf so it can stay happy.
That's cool.
Bite into the wolf.
Enrichment.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's definitely
Out
it.
an open space with
Cool.
trees and bushes.
It looks like a basketball.
And the gorilla, though. The
Yeah.
has a
It
rope.
is a
Oh, that's good.
So,
The rope's getting a point on its own. So that's 7 points in total there for education team. We've had HR. Is there any teams that we haven't?
Just those 4.
Just those 4. Yep. And how many is that? So you got 26, 34, 37 points.
Oh, hang on, the other sea turtle. I did a tapir, gorilla, turtle, wolf.
Okay.
They were the ones that we
Those
put
four?
in this round, yeah.
Cool. Can you add up all of these numbers together and we get our final score? I'm not doing mental maths. So like, surprise! It's an exam. And yeah. And for everyone else, do you want to go and grab a seat and then we will do some final reflections?
Would you like a calculator?
No, I can do that. I can math.
I could not math.
70.
Thank you, everybody.
7.
Wow. Okay. Make sure we got a good picture of this.
64, 70, yeah.
Thank you. 70 points. Okay. Thank you. Then we've got to add up those 3 numbers as well. Okay, everybody. Can you, at the back, can you hear me? Because I keep getting in trouble with Claire and the microphone. Thank you. I appreciate you. Okay, so I think instead of doing like the final retrospective as part of like the simulation, let's zoom out and start thinking about how does this connect back to And is this, by the way, does anyone like see any direct connections to their reality, like experiences or feelings?
Yeah.
Yeah. We work in the zoo. Yeah, thank you very much. Oh, and by the way, I forgot to mention your score for that round was 70, so you almost doubled. Thank you. For our highest ever score of 115 3/4, which is like a sequel to Harry Potter. So well done, everybody. And you can see, like, so 11 3/4, 34 and 70. I didn't give you cumulative scores, right? So you didn't add on for the animals that you had. That really does demonstrate, like, the ability, like, as a group to come together and start, like, coalescing around a shared vision. So congratulations to everyone there. I drew a few, like, reflections as we're going through. I think, Simon, you have a few, and I think everyone here has probably got a few things, so we'll open it up as well, right? So I remember, like, round one, our fantastic HR team. I mean, I think you guys are great. Thank you very much, right? If it's fair, right, your experiences were frustration, right, at the beginning. Like, why is no one talking to us? For a start, right? What's going on over there? That looks quite fun. Which is, it's representative of, like, a large organizations, which can have organizations that are quite separated out, right, from others in the work that is happening. So well done for, like, getting integrated into everyone else for round two. It was interesting, I think, that I was thinking about, like, process improvements, or, like, the fact that we didn't introduce by design any cross-team retrospective, and that it emerged very quickly out of the first time box. Again, like, Matt, thank you very much for your proposal there. But I think it was quite hard, that retrospective. Yeah, I can pass this microphone around, actually. We can share a couple, I guess. Does anyone have a perspective that they'd like to share on that? Yeah.
That retrospective was far too large for meaningful participation by all the participants. And the entire game, quiet people were overwhelmed by loud.
Yeah. Yeah. Which, I mean, like, did you see that in an organization as well?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so we're trying to, like, uncover some of the challenges from cross-team collaboration as well. What might you do, like, next time?
Create the space for people who are quiet
Sorry.
to speak.
Yeah.
Literally hand quiet people a microphone.
Yeah. That's fantastic. It's working. Someone came up to me and said, maybe we should go back and get a release train engineer again, and, like, a coordinator, which is, it's quite interesting, actually, by the way, because, like, that's a true thing. Like, so in my organization, and I'll spend a little bit of time, if that's okay, then just talking about, like, briefly some of our, like, history of the last couple of years of trying to descale and move away from a, like, single framework, or, like, the scaled agile framework. And it's difficult when we start saying, hey, look, we want small autonomous teams, but then they are interdependent upon one another and not necessarily giving, like, prescriptive patterns for how they should work. Sometimes it's like, well, we don't like safe, thank you very much. We don't like the overhead and the process that it brings. But could you tell us what to do, please? It's quite a difficult duality that we have to, like, negotiate and, like, transverse. Those are a couple of things that I had. I think
I was going to add on to that. I mean, it shows...
Do you want to have the microphone, I think? I'll give you one and I'll take one. Yeah.
The thing I'd add on to that is, what a skilled facilitator can do. So if you have a skilled facilitator or coach, how they can help with that, bringing out that people. And I think a lot of companies don't think of that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, like, it's a great first step, recognizing, hey, we need to talk, then realizing, like, actually, how do we go about talking through different topics. Thank you.
So you set us up to have one big, massively dependent organisation, and I think the team started to try to make them independent lots, but it was quite hard because obviously the planning and the retro times, but I think where they were going was removing that dependency, which is what you were saying. I mean, whatever scaling framework is all about papering over those dependencies, right?
Yeah.
And it felt like we were being brought back to being one big mass. I don't know if some people were deliberately doing that to try and make a point, or just because they like to upset.
Well, yeah. you talk about bringing everyone like into that space. Well, it's quite interesting. Yeah. So like I figured it out, right? I designed this so that each team was interdependent on everyone else. Like no single team could create value in our zoo by themselves. You could say like, why didn't you design cross-functional teams? Well, like, that's the point, right? Like let's kind of uncover that through this experience, right? And then it was up to like the group to reform the teams. And the first question is like, are we allowed to do that, right? Can we change? Like, yes, of course you can. I remember early on someone was like, can we go and talk to the other teams? I was like, or like, should we go and talk to the other teams? Like, these are very good questions was my response. Now, obviously, like if I was as a coach in the organisation, I probably would be a little bit more like, that's a very good idea, let me help you, rather than like, what do you think? But for our game, it's fine. Yeah.
Although we talked about going into cross-functional teams, I'm not aware of anybody actually changing their role. So we stayed with the constraint you set us to begin with. So if I was education to begin with, I stayed in education, and you never set that rule to impose on yourself, unless somebody did change. I'm not aware of.
Oh, we did.
Oh, you did? Oh.
Yeah, well, excellent. You changed your roles.
I did, yeah. I moved over to the enclosure team from the acquisition team.
Okay, awesome. You got tired of the acquisition team. And I can understand why. Oh, yes. Is that HR at the back? Now I have to go talk to HR. Yeah. We'll do a couple more observations and then we'll...
Just one.
Sorry.
I follow what David said there. Okay, so we started as a team. We went in becoming cross-functional. When you were rewarding us with points, you went back
Oh, interesting.
to a team. So, and I think that's what happens, right? So even if we create this cross-functionality, there's still kind of assessment, reward, etc. happening at team level.
Yeah.
At well, HR, etc., etc.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think another pattern that we can observe is like the diversity. So even when we make the teams cross-functional or when we are working in a functional way, we are different people. So if we try, some people they go, this is the goal, let's start doing, but some people are more analytic, they wait a bit. And then if you only follow the goal and don't look to your partner, to your teammate, and understand how can you make them committed, so you have a problem.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you. Can we flip these ones? Like, can we flip that to enterprise change pattern as well, just so that everyone can see it? Just it might be helpful, like just an observation. It's interesting, by the way, you talk about points and then how like actually like made us come back together, but points were only awarded if we actually collaborated as a whole. So it's an interesting like paradox that you're just describing. I was just thinking about as what you were describing, like the people and their personalities, as you were describing, right? As you start collaborating, and you're talking about the same thing right then. We have our enterprise change pattern. We talk about the importance of including the right people, those people who are affected by change in the change. But now we're introducing people into a conversation, and now we have to start thinking about like neurodiversity, different viewpoints, different like willingness to engage. And we talked about the importance of a good facilitator in that conversation, which I think also that safety space and enabling that safety. So I guess that demonstrates some of like the importance of our roles in organizational change, that space, which is good for us, right? Yeah. Maybe like any final observation? Hey.
I just want to say Knifin. Chaos, and then we start to move it towards a segment, and I thought that was quite interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Do we leave chaos?
Probably not.
No.
Less.
Yeah. Yeah. One final reflection. Thank you.
This is both reflection on our exercise this evening and also within organizations. Sometimes there seems to be a disconnect almost between leadership and the rest of the world that's in the organization.
Yeah.
For me, I experience leadership in this game through the sort of rules that were set and the expectations that were set, what kind of animals we needed and animal welfare officer, all of those things came down, and I made an assumption that came from leadership. It pre-existed before the game started. But then I was always curious about how come there is no two-way communication between leadership and us? How come there's nobody from the rule setters who came back to say, is there any change that can be made? to make this whole experience a bit better. So I was curious about that lack of two-way street between leadership and us. And second, there was, for our team, I felt there is also an intent to raise the craft, say enclosure team, raise the craft of the enclosure team as in willingness to share expertise. Hey, this is how I did it. What did you do? So while we all celebrate cross-functional teams, the willingness and the ability for each function also to raise the bar of their own craft, I think that's important as well.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Thanks. Would you like to add anything, Simon?
Yeah, thank you. Just to anchor this into the enterprise change pattern, what did we actually do? What the whole process, ever so briefly. So we mentioned leadership. We didn't have a hierarchical set here. We didn't have a bunch of senior managers looking over the process. So that's a bit different in terms of how we've set this up than how that part works in the enterprise change pattern. So in a way, we've almost got this self-organizing group, which we often don't see. So the difference there might be, so in this particular example, this setup, there's a little bit of a difference there. So normally what we would do is we would work with leadership and align leadership around what are the problems and the outcomes we're looking for. So what does that mean? If leadership can change their behavior in a way that solves those problems without working with anyone else, fantastic. We do some leadership workshops, and these little toolbar things here, these spanners, are a bunch of these patterns which we can use, workshops we can use to align leadership around what needs to be done. They align themselves around the outcomes that they need to find, and if they can fix that themselves without needing to change anyone else's way of work, job done. Of course, in this case, we needed all of us to change the way that we're working, and we've got our product here. So some of these demands and constraints that we were looking for, I think within this model are actually coming from our customers. These are the people visiting the zoos. So that kind of demand was there in the marketplace driving this. So what we do with who to include, again, there are different techniques to find out who we want to include. And in this case, we've gathered you all here together as the representatives of this different organisation, and that's who is needed. So in this case, it was whoever turned up to our lovely meetup. So thank you for being here. And then what we do is once we've got the right people, then we start doing experiments and iteration with those people, and everybody makes the experiment for the way they're working. So the experiment is the change. Now, the key principle behind this is that people optimize to the level of their identity. So I am a programmer means I'm going to be optimizing for programming, right? If I am a HR person, I'm going to be optimizing for HR. And so the minimum requirement really is to get the people together who are on the product, to get them together so that we're all pretty amazing at problem solving, right? That's what we do. That's why we're hired. We're knowledge workers. We can think our way through things. So why don't we leverage that not only for our silos, but actually around the change itself? And so getting people together is such an important thing. Who to include? Because if we change that identity from I am a something to I work on the product, then we optimize the level of the product, and that then gives us the flow, the value to customer, the ability to iterate together. And through that experimentation wheel, which is what we did with the sprints and the working through, then we ourselves get to choose what experiments, and that includes the leadership team. So you might see there's that line at the top, this wiggly together line. It means that leadership are part of the team. We work together, not them and us, which is so unfortunately prevalent. So we worked round and we did that. We worked on the experiments and we looked at how we improved. We do the retrospectives and things. And I always think the simplest way to get people together, even if people are initially working in silos, is that retrospective. So it's so important. It's such an easy thing to run. An hour's retrospective with 80, 90 people, 150 people with a good facilitator. That's why there's only one role in this pattern, which is this sort of generic role of coach. And this really is the holding it together, setting those enabling constraints, creating that safety. That is not only psychological safety, but it's also managing risk. Part of that was this animal welfare regulator type person, but it's also about holding this space, making sure that everybody can speak. In knowledge work, where's all the knowledge? It's in our heads. So if half the people can't speak through privilege, or some people being able to shout louder, some people having a microphone and some people not, then we don't get all of that knowledge out so that we can make much better informed decisions. And so part of who do we want to include, plus that coach and safety role, we can start really leveraging that power of that tacit knowledge of what we're really good at, which is problem solving, to figure out how we move forwards. And that iterative change then moves at the pace that takes into account the current workload and the current critical path projects and all those other things, because people will only figure out what experiments they need based upon they know what other work they've got. And so slowly, as we move around that, we get structure and process change, which is what we saw. We started to see that process. We just started to see the beginnings of those silos breaking down. And I'd be willing to bet if we did this for another couple of hours, so I want to go home and have some beer or pizza or something before then, but if we did this for another couple of hours, I could pretty much imagine that those silo teams wouldn't exist anymore. And that's where this would probably go to. And then we have real teams. And so around it goes, and we improve the organisation through that pattern. So hopefully that gives you a way to see how this pattern works briefly in this fantastic exercise, which I personally had loads of fun, especially picking holes in what everyone was doing. But it was fantastic. It was really good fun. It was so good. Thank you for organising this amazing game for us. If you want to come back up and say a few things or whatever. This is brilliant. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon. We've got about 15 minutes, right? And then we'll stop, have some social time, and then go to the pub. So I just speak for a few minutes, and then if there's still final time for Q&A for us as a group as well. So first of all, by the way, thank you very much for your generosity of spirit and willingness to come and play and experience. And this is the first time that we run it at this many people, so of course there will be some needles along the way. I just call them design notes. Anyone who wants to talk to me about the game, feedback, I'm happy to give copies, by the way, and share it out. If anyone does want to go play it, that'd be quite cool. Maybe we'll go do it again. But maybe just for a few minutes, I'd like to tie back to discover my organisation and some of the work I do within that space. So I've used the frame of the paradigm of the scaled agile framework in that context for a fair amount of my conversation today. But it hasn't been for a few years that we've actually been using that framework. And it was just an interesting reference point earlier on. Now, we're in this kind of current reality where our organisation is working hard to descale. And it is trying to have greater autonomy between teams. But the current reality is, as I was describing, that there's still a lot of interdependence between these teams. Now, we had as Agile coaches within the organization, we had varying success and degrees of ability to look at different patterns across the organization and apply them to help tune within the context that we were working within. And I think that worked because everyone kind of knew the rules of the game. Hey, there's this big website, this big picture, right? You can go do it. You can do your 2-day certification, your 4-day certification, etc. And if we optimize within that space or try and apply some different patterns, you can help kind of introduce that change incrementally. During that time, by the way, we weren't unknowingly using the enterprise change pattern. We were really relying on the best, or our best knowledge of good change management practices. So actually, it was quite unlocking when I came and joined you last year on this. Because when we moved into an era where we didn't have any single framework to help guide our actions, it's very liberating, right? Hey, we can do anything we want. We can be very creative. We can control how we want to work. But as we discovered in that retrospective, wow, that's really hard. Can we just go back and could you just tell me what to do again? It's quite an interesting, I think in a human nature, right, to kind of want to go back to certainty again after a time. And so as change agents and agile coaches, trying to help us sustain transformation and organizational growth is difficult. And keeping the focus, which is are we able to solve our real business problems rather than just being could we be 10% more agile next year? That's not our goal, right? We had a good, I think, frame of reference by looking at different patterns. I showed you the like that pattern language model, and we had a good experience from like different frameworks that we could draw upon, but we didn't really have like a good framework of engaging with our leadership. And like change is difficult and people going for learn, and it's true of our leaders as well. They had to learn what it meant to work in this space. And there's this quite interesting duality between what you talked about, Kevin, earlier on, like complexity and complicated, right? So as an Agile coach, I knew, hey, change is uncertain, it's hard, there's going to be multiple ways that we could go. Some of this stuff is going to stick, some of this we're going to have to iterate on. It's gonna like tough, right? It's going to be a long, lonely journey. I think you described it earlier, Simon. And also, nothing's permanent. Like we can instigate change, but then, hey, someone else will come into the organization and bam, we're back to redefining what we thought we had some stability around. But as leaders, the mindset can be different. We would like certainty, please, and confidence that we are going to have a way of working that's going to help us build predictability and our ability to deliver to our customers. You can understand where that mindset comes from. We believe that experts can tell us what to do, and we believe that we should be able to see a plan for implementing that space, right? And if we could limit the disruption as much as possible as we're changing, that would be fantastic too. So there's kind of like duality of like, how do we connect or like bridge that gap? And it was fortunate then, like, so we had a good basis of like, well, okay, these are the patterns that we can draw upon, almost like a library. But how do we actually connect them in the right place? We know we want to go and engage with the teams directly, but how do we do that? And being able to take an enterprise change pattern and look at it in a structured way really helped our conversations, both like within our groups as coaches to be able to like build good strategy and like an approaches, but also as a way of communicating with our leaders in a structured way. So being able to align on a problem was significant, like a real business problem, like where it helped us not to try and to present this as like, hey, here's the next agile thing we need to do, but like, hey, you have this problem. If we look at our system, we can see this issue. You see it, we see it. This is what we can have a conversation about. And connected to that, we also found that it was very useful to, when we think about like who to include, to also like bring in some ideas that come around like consent decision making. We saw that like today in our game, like with the approver, etc. And being able to talk about like the drivers for organizational change. I don't know if anyone's come across like sociocracy or is using that particularly, but I found that a huge inspiration to like connect into this model as well. So it helped us build some bridges. And instead of like looking for leadership, say like gaining consensus, like we all need to agree what the way forward is. Instead, are we safe enough to proceed? Do we have consent to progress? And for leaders who, again, like who are comfortable and used to seeing timelines, like show me your implementation plan, please, for the next 6 months for our organizational change. In some ways, we had to like find a middle ground between like trying to take a coaching stance and a consulting stance. Like that's just our growth, like internally as an organization and people working within it. But it was useful almost to lay out like the first cycle of the change, like in a linear format if it helped, right? Hey, like, you know, like step 1, we're talking to you, it's fantastic, right? Step 2, we're going to go and work with this part of the organization. This is our plan. We're going to look at our current reality. We're going to form the next experiment, and then off we go. And then we're going to come back and review. And we found that we had to draw like that middle ground of like, here's our initial recommendation. So we haven't got to a point where we could say, right, we'll bring right people into understanding the solution together, or at least not directly. But that's where we're trying to like continue to walk towards. So it's difficult for as individuals within that organization, I think with any organization, to really like live into it. But I think we're getting more used to it, and I think we're getting there. Well, I don't know, Claire and Kelly, what do you think? Like, give us a nod. Yeah, okay. Yes, good. Yeah. So maybe like just my final conclusion remarks is like, thank you again. I think I can't overstate that. And and hopefully there's something inspiring here, something that's interesting that gets you thinking about your own context and just reflecting. Or you have that satisfaction of going, my organization is fantastic. We have none of these troubles. Brilliant. Yeah, thank you. I'll pass to you, Simon, to finish. Or a Q&A, whatever, yeah.
Brilliant, thank you. If there are any questions about anything whatsoever, we can try and answer them. If we keep to the scope of what we've done tonight, then you might get better answers. So yeah, any questions? We've got just a few minutes before we go, so we won't have too many.
How do you deal with change fatigue?
So question, how do we deal with change fatigue? So often when we get asked into an organisation, there is already change fatigue because people are looking for something different. They've tried the things off the shelf, they're looking for something, and people are tired. The great thing with this model is because we're including everyone, people get to pull at the speed that they want to, because they design the experiments and the cadence themselves. So we don't have a 2-week cadence, 4-week cadence. This is what you must change. We've got a cycle. It's designed as part, so the pattern is very non-prescriptive. It pulls change at the pace. So really, change fatigue doesn't really happen much because people are pulling it at their own pace. That's kind of how it works. So then what we've the caveat to that is that when we look at the reason for change, step one, the outcomes of that may be that there's market demand or there's things which mean that we need to change rapidly, but then that needs to be prioritised because we're working with leadership at the absolute beginning. We always start with leadership, never bottom-up change. That means that demand, that pull, takes into consideration when we're setting the volume of work. So in one organisation, for example, they decided that there was roughly about 33% of time needed on the change for the next 9 months. So that's quite a significant amount of time away from product development. So 33% of time was spent on that, which meant that we knew that less product work was going to get done. And so that balance happens because leadership are aware of that. It isn't being pushed, it's being pulled. So it's kind of balanced like that. No worries. Any other questions for either of us before we go?
Quick question for Carl.
Do you want to just grab this so we can hear?
Ah, sorry. Thank you. When you did this with your company, how long did you spend? I mean, we're here for 2 hours.
Okay, yeah, so secret, yeah, now I can reveal my secret. Like, we tried it, it was only a couple of hours, right, our first run. There was only about 6 of us. So we each had to, like, play a team. And, like, okay, imagine this, right, there's actually 6 of you while you're playing this. We were only able to get through, like, one, like, proper dry run before we go through. But if I think about, like, what I intend to do, like, I can imagine this being, well, you can extend it out for as long as you want to, right? Like, we were just chatting, like, what would a day look like where you had, well, you talked about going through those different cycles. I imagine, like, what if this was a day of activity where we could really spend longer in retrospective, in the ability to reform and to build in a different, like, really go through our patterns, add to them, adjust, reform the teams, build, like, go bolder, bigger. So I think it's extensible. We talked about, like, you know, adding a finance role. So, okay, cool. You know, budget's your responsibility. So we're here. We have, like, someone went and got a panda, right, and they've got, you know, surrounded by glass. Like, well, unfortunately, there's a glass shortage, right? There's probably another, like, boat stuck in the Suez Canal. Like, so what are we going to do? So we can keep adding roles. There's more teams that we could bring into this as well. So there's opportunities to scale out and like add more complexity, to experience more complexity, and how that impacts. Thank you.
There's one more. Thank you. One more question, I think.
Thank you. Over this is multiple parallel experiments. Do you recommend that? Because isn't that going to be chaotic? Because how do you know you're getting the value from which experiment?
Interesting. Thank you. That's a brilliant question. And when we look at experiments, often we think of experiments as how do we find the one true reality? If we think about science, what we're looking for is what's repeatable. Whereas we're not in the obvious or complicated domain, we are in the complex domain. And in complexity, we're looking for emergence. So we know that we're never going to get something twice. So an experiment here is actually the action that we're taking to see if we get some benefit. We don't actually really care why, because we know it's not repeatable anyway. So what we are looking for is, did this thing improve and move towards our outcome? If it did, let's keep doing more of that. And if it didn't, let's come up with a new experiment. And so we can run multiple things at once because we are the people defining the experiments are the people actually doing the experiment. And so really the experiment isn't about trying to find out what works and then writing it down like a pilot, for example. So a pilot is let's try this and then roll it out, which is the wrong domain for this. So if you're using pilots at work, stop doing that. And think about emergence and how things are non-repeatable. So each time there's an experiment moving forwards, it's really just a change, a hypothesis-driven change. I don't know if that helps or not. So think about experiments slightly differently than you would in the complicated or obvious domain. Awesome. Okay, good. I think we're probably at time. So thank you so much for everybody, including Gemma, for doing this amazing. So I'd actually take some time actually to look at this incredible creation that Gemma has done of our evening. So when, in a minute, feel free before you go to have a quick look at that. And I just want to thank you again for taking the time to come out here in your evening. We're back in person. Yay, real people, 3D. Yay. Thank you. So the last thing I'll say is that if you do want to learn more, then we do have Brighter Work, which is our company which can help come into your organisation. AWA, we do training on these courses, and also there is a book called Change, which documents this and also talks about things we've done and walks through this in much more detail. Thank you very much.